Okay, okay, here they come. Great, 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 great. I think you might want to back up a little bit there. Gray. As opportunists, these lizards will try and eat anything they think they can get away with, even occasionally people. In parts of Indonesia, livestock are vanishing without a sound, pulled underground overnight. No blood, no struggle, no trace left behind. The predator responsible is the largest lizard on Earth, a protected apex hunter that villagers are legally forbidden to touch even as it pushes closer to their homes. With nowhere else to turn, they look to an unlikely ally, a small, overlooked animal that even the fiercest predators refuse to attack. Its defense is so effective, it can turn a Komodo dragon's greatest strength into a fatal weakness, and it may be the strangest solution nature has ever offered. Komodo dragons are not used to seeing heavy equipment, so when they get too close, we try to keep them away so their character won't change. The ground that swallows animals starts quietly, the way these things always do. One farm loses a goat, another loses a few chickens. No struggle, no noise, no torn fence. Just an empty pen at first light and a story that makes no sense. For a while, everyone tells themselves the easy version. A thief, bad luck, an animal that wandered off in the dark and never found its way home. Then the pattern sharpens and the easy version falls apart. The UNESCO World Heritage Center told a laser has requested more information from the Indonesian government about the development. It also said it has reminded the government of the need to carefully assess any potential impact. It's the third pen in a week, then the fourth. Neighbors start comparing mornings over the fences, and the same details keep surfacing. The latch gate, the silent night, the animals gone without a single mark. Fear has a way of organizing people, and eventually a handful of them decide they've had enough of guessing. They gather what light they have and walk into the tree line together, following the edge of the fields to where the forest swallows the last of the open ground. The construction is being done very carefully. We haven't cut down a single tree, because when people finally push into the forest to look, what they find stops them cold. Holes, dozens of them scattered across the ground, dug into the soil at deliberate angles. These aren't collapses or old washed-out pits. They're burrows, active, maintained, recently used. You can feel the cool air moving out of them. You can see the packed earth at the mouth where something heavy has dragged itself in and out again and again. Underground shelters built by something that moved in and has no plans to leave. And here's the part that turns fear into dread. It's spreading. Whatever lives down there isn't staying deep in the forest where it belongs. It's drifting closer, burrow by burrow. It creeps toward the fields, toward the fences, toward the edge of the village itself. You can track it in the dirt if you know what to look for. Every fresh hole is a marker, a flag planted a little nearer to where people sleep. And inside those burrows lives the largest lizard on Earth. Wow! I can see into its mouth, the curved backward-facing teeth, and look at the tail thrashing around. Komodo dragons, animals that grow past 3 meters and weigh as much as a grown man, moving with a speed that looks impossible for something that size. From the shelter of the burrow, they rest, they cool their bodies in the heat, and they wait. And as their range pushes outward, the missing livestock stops being the worst of it, because the vanishing goats were never the real threat. They were just a warning. The predator no one can touch. To understand what these villages are up against, you have to understand what's living in that burrow. A Komodo dragon isn't just a big lizard. It's one of the most efficient ambush predators alive. And its deadliest weapon is its bite. The mouth is lined with curved, serrated teeth shaped almost like saw blades, built to tear instead of crush. But the teeth are only the opening move. The real damage rides in behind them. Research has shown that Komodo dragons carry venom glands in the lower jaw, releasing compounds that keep blood from clotting and drive prey toward shock. So here's the deal. A bitten animal doesn't always drop on the spot. Sometimes it tears free and staggers away, thinking it escaped, and then it weakens over the next hours or days as the wound refuses to close. The dragon doesn't need to win the fight. It just needs to land one bite, and then follow. Now put that predator inside the place where you live. What's happening in these villages isn't just missing goats anymore. It's contact, not out in the wild, but in the yard, on the path you walk every day. In a few cases, Right at the doorway of a home, a woman steps out to sweep and finds one stretched across the threshold, unbothered, in no hurry to move. A child shortcut to a neighbor's house runs right past a warm patch of ground where one likes to bask. The animal isn't hunting anyone. Not exactly. But it's here in the space where ordinary life is supposed to happen. And now everyone has to plan their day around it. And here's the part that makes people feel truly powerless. There's nothing they're legally allowed to do about it. The Komodo dragon is a protected species. Hurting one, even to save your own livestock, even to defend your own kids, puts you on the wrong side of the law. So the villagers are stuck with an apex predator settling into their world, and their hands tied behind their backs. The threat grows. The rules meant to protect the animal quietly leave the people around it exposed. The other world, beneath the forest, on another island under a different canopy, there's a network of tunnels a Komodo dragon cannot enter. Not because it isn't strong enough, not because it can't dig, but because something already lives there, something that has turned every tunnel into a place a predator does not want to be. In the forests of Java, these burrows are already claimed not by giant reptiles, but by porcupines, an animal most people would never think twice about. We have 10 sites. So we work in Komodo Island, Ringa Island, Nusaki Island, and also Gillimang Island. Basically, what we're doing is this is a collaboration project between the national park and down there, the rules flip completely. A porcupine doesn't surrender ground. Its whole body is armored shoulder to tail, and that armor turns a narrow tunnel into a weapon. Out in the open, a predator has room to circle, to test, to pick its angle. Inside a burrow, all of that is gone. The walls close in. The exits shrink to a single line. And the creature waiting at the back is facing the only direction anything can come from, bristling, ready, built for exactly this. For whatever crawls in after it. The burrow stops being a shelter and becomes a trap. Picture from the attacker's side for a second. You follow descent into a hole in the ground. The light dies behind you. The tunnel tightens around your shoulders until you can barely turn your head. And somewhere ahead of you in the dark, something is waiting, and it isn't running. It's the worst possible place to start a fight, and you're already halfway into it. Here's what makes it so hard to beat. It doesn't run. When it's threatened, it doesn't bolt. It turns. It plants itself, locks its body into a wall of spikes, and dares the attacker to make contact. Most predators take one look and decide the meal isn't worth the price. Over enough encounters, over enough generations, they simply stop trying. Now hold that against how a Komodo dragon actually hunts. It's an ambush predator. It gets close, explodes forward, and drives in a bite that shoves the softest, most vulnerable part of its own body forward at the exact moment it strikes. Its nose, its lips, the tissue around its mouth, which is exactly where the porcupine's defense does its worst work. Two predators, two completely different ways of surviving. One underground world they were never meant to share. And that raises a question the villages can't stop asking. If this animal already lives in a region, and if it drives predators off without any help from anyone, why not bring it closer to where the dragons are doing the most harm? The islands are connected. Boats already run between them. The distance is short. On paper, it looks almost simple. Move the thing predators fear into a place where a predator runs unchecked, and let nature handle the rest. But paper and reality are very different things, and the ground here is more tangled than anyone wants it to be. If you're finding this as unsettling as it is fascinating, take a second to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep digging into stories like this one. This place is unique. Every time I wake up in the morning and I walk outside, I see something that I've either never seen before or only seen on TV. And we're just getting to the part that matters most. When a predator stops being afraid, here's what's really shifting out there. And it isn't the dragons getting meaner. As Komodo dragons push into new range, they run into people more and more often. And that's the danger, not aggression, familiarity. When a wild predator meets humans again and again, and nothing bad ever happens to it, its caution starts to rot from the inside. The instinct that used to keep at a distance quietly switches off. You can already see it in the villages. The dragons don't behave the way they used to. Animals that once melted into the trees at the first sight of a person now hold their ground. They move through the settlement like they own it. They come closer. They linger. And every time one does it, and nothing stops it, the line between the wild and the village fades a little more. Ask anyone who's lived here long enough, and they'll tell you the same thing. The dragons used to keep their distance. You'd catch a glimpse of one at the edge of a field, and it would already be turning away. Now they'll lie in the middle of a path and watch you decide what to do about it. That shift sounds small. It isn't. A wild animal that's afraid of you is a danger you can read and manage. A wild animal that has simply stopped caring is something else entirely, and there's no manual for it. Do the math on that. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in 100 small ones. A dragon crosses a path and nothing chases it. Rests in the shade of a house and no one drives it off. Takes a penned animal and pays no price. One safe encounter at a time. The fear that protected everyone gets sanded down to nothing. And a predator that's lost its fear of people isn't a rare event on the edge of the forest anymore. It's a neighbor. So why is this happening now? Follow the food. A Komodo dragon is, at its core, a survival machine. And survival runs on energy. Its preferred prey is deer. In healthy habitat, that's what it's built to hunt. But when deer get scarce, it doesn't sit still and starve. It adapts. Goats, chickens, livestock penned by a village, anything slower and softer. The people who cannot leave. In most places, they would. If a 3-meter predator started walking through your yard into the space where your kids play, you'd pack up and go. That's the obvious answer. But here, the obvious answer doesn't work. Because here, people can't leave. And the reason is stranger and more human than fear. The danger doesn't push people out. In a twisted way. It locks them in. Ahmed and Denny's work so hard. Their work ethic is unparalleled. And I feel like they have a really good understanding of what to do to fully understand Komodo dragons. They're tied to this land culturally, economically, practically. Leaving means walking away from their income, from generations of belonging, from the only stability many of them have ever had. And there's one more force pinning them in place, and it grew straight out of the animal that's threatening them. Komodo National Park was established in 1980. In the decade since, it's become one of the most powerful draws in the country. In the early years, only a trickle of visitors came. Now, it pulls hundreds of thousands of people a year, traveling from across the world to stand near the last dragons on Earth. And every one of them spends money. They need guides, boats, food, a place to sleep, someone to sell them the experience they came for. Picture the guide who takes them out. He knows better than anyone how fast one of these animals can move, how a calm morning turns dangerous in seconds. He's the one who tells the tourists where to stand and when to back away. And he's also the one whose whole income depends on those same dragons being here, drawing those same crowds. The person who understands the danger most clearly is the person who can least afford for it to go away. Now multiply that guide by a whole community. The boat operator who ferries visitors across the water at dawn. The cook feeding a full room every night in high season. The kids selling little carved figures at the dock. The family renting out a spare room to travelers who came from the other side of the planet to see a living dragon. Every one of them has quietly built a life on top of the same danger. And every one of them faces the exact same impossible math when the sun goes down. The thing that could kill them is also the thing that feeds them. That's a trap, and it's almost impossible to escape. Fear says leave. Everything else says stay. The boat that could carry a family to safety is the same boat that carries paying tourists in. The safest move for any one person crashes head-on into the survival of the whole community. And when those two forces pull against each other, people don't pick the clean answer. They pick the one that keeps food on the table. So where exactly are they supposed to go? Whole local economies now rest on the presence of the very predator that empties their pens. The dragon is a threat and the paycheck at the same time. So people stay and they adapt, and they live inside a permanent low-grade alertness that never fully switches off. You learn to scan the ground before you step into it. You keep the kids in sight. You listen differently at night, because the one thing everyone here understands is that the danger keeps no schedule. It just appears, And then it's your problem right now with whatever you happen to have in your hands. It's not a life of constant panic. It's quieter than that, and in some ways worse. A background of a caution that never goes fully silent. You get good at reading the day. God smells really bad, and it's, I think, the best bait for attracting the dragon. You notice which paths feel wrong and take the long way around without even thinking about it. You teach your kids the same things your parents taught you. Because out here, that knowledge isn't a lesson. It's an inheritance passed down because the alternative is unthinkable. Some fight back with whatever's nearby. Stones, sticks, herd an animal back toward the trees. Surveys suggest a striking number of residents have gone even further, grabbing a dragon by the tail to drag it off where it isn't wanted. But far more often, there's no confrontation at all. The dragon moves through on its own terms while people watch from a safe distance and wait for it to pass. And it's against exactly that backdrop. No rules, no safety, no way out. That one strange idea starts to look like it might be worth trying. The animal, nothing wants to fight. Of everything living in these forests, the porcupine is the strangest thing anyone could reach for, and maybe the smartest. It has a reputation across the animal kingdom not as a fighter, but as a thing not worth fighting. Its quills deliver instant pain and wounds that heal slowly and heal badly. And most predators learn one way or another to leave it completely alone. And that teaches you something people get wrong about the wild out there. Survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about not getting hurt. A predator that wins a fight but loses an eye or a jaw or the use of a leg has lost far more than it gained. Evolution knows this better than we do. It pushes hunters away from prey that costs too much for too little. And the porcupine sits at the far end of that scale. It can cause deep tissue damage, drive infection into a wound, and in some cases kill. Even big, confident predators hesitate before they commit. Here's why the quill works so well. It's brutally simple. Each one is a stiffened hair tipped with tiny backward-facing barbs. Going in, it slides through flesh almost effortlessly. Coming out is a nightmare. Those barbs catch and hold. So the harder anything pulls to get free, the more damage it does to itself. The porcupine doesn't even aim. It just has to be touched, and the weapon does the rest, and keeps doing it long after the fight is over, buried where nothing can reach it. Picture the standoff from the porcupine's side. It doesn't charge. It doesn't posture for long or try to look bigger than it is. It simply becomes impossible to attack without paying for it. A low, dark shape that turns every angle of approach into a wall of points. There's no bluff to call here, no gap in the armor to exploit. The threat is real, it's physical, and it's already fully deployed before the fight has even started. Most predators feel that in some deep, ancient part of the brain and decide correctly to walk away. But hesitation against a lion is one thing. The real question is whether that defense holds up against a Komodo dragon. And this is where it gets incredible. Remember how the dragon attacks? It closes in and bites, leading with its face. It's to attract the dragon. The dragon have very good sense of smells. They could smell for up to 1 kilometer. They have an organ called Jacobson's organ. Now think about what those quills do to exactly that kind of strike. They pierce soft tissue on contact. Because they're barbed and backward facing, they don't slide back out. They anchor in the flesh and snap off, buried in the wound. Once a quill is in, it doesn't stay put. Every move the animal makes works it deeper, over hours and days. It can migrate through tissue toward blood vessels and organs, seeding infection the whole way. There are documented cases of large predators dying after encounters like these. Not in the moment, but slowly as the damage spreads inside them. And that delay is the truly devastating part. The predator walks away thinking it lost nothing but a meal. The wound looks survivable. It moves on. And then over the next few days, the quills do their patient work, deep where nothing can be pulled free until an injury that looked minor turns fatal. The porcupine doesn't have to win the fight in front of it. It just makes contact and lets time finish the job. The exact same logic the dragon uses on its own prey turns back against the dragon itself. And here's the part that flips the whole story. The Komodo dragon's greatest strength, that patient, follow-the-wound style of killing, is exactly what leaves it exposed to a porcupine. A predator built to bite is a predator built to lead with its face. And a face is the one thing in the world you never want to bring near a wall of barbs. The dragon's own playbook becomes a trap. It's rare to find two animals so perfectly, almost cruelly mismatched. One that kills slowly with a bite, and one that punishes that bite more slowly still. So, if this animal already carries a weapon that can kill a Komodo dragon, the fix seems obvious. Just put porcupines where the dragons are. Except the moment anyone actually tries to plant it, the whole idea starts to fall apart. Why? The obvious solution falls apart. On paper, it's perfect. No new species dragged in from across the world. No foreign animal turned loose to wreck an ecosystem nobody fully understands. Just a native creature doing what it already does, place where it's needed most. But look closer, and the clean idea comes apart fast. Start with geography, because it's trickier than it looks. Indonesia does have native porcupines. The Malayan porcupine lives on the mainland and across Sumatra. The Sunda porcupine lives on islands nearer the Komodo range. On paper, that makes relocation possible without importing anything foreign. You'd be moving an animal that already belongs to the wider region. But possible isn't the same as effective. The porcupines might survive the move. Where they'd actually change how Komodo dragons behave at any real scale is a total unknown. And there's a deeper trap buried in the plan. Say it works at first. Say the porcupines settle in, claim the burrows, and make those shelters too dangerous for dragons to use. What does a Komodo dragon do when it loses its shelter? It doesn't vanish. It adapts, same as it always has. It goes looking for somewhere else to rest, somewhere else to cool down, somewhere else to den. And in a landscape where the wild spaces are already shrinking, the most available option left might be the one place you were trying to protect. The village. Push the dragons out of forest burrows, and you might push them straight at people, turning a shelter problem into a far worse encounter problem. The cure quietly becomes a disease. And think about who pays for that. Picture the family whose pen the porcupines were supposed to protect. They did everything right. They trusted the plan. And now the dragon that used to den quietly out in the forest is sizing up their backyard as the next best place to rest. You didn't remove the threat from their lives. You moved it closer, right onto the doorstep of the people the whole idea was meant to save. And history throws up one more warning. In Pakistan, porcupines aren't seen as saviors at all. They're classed as agricultural pests, blamed for tearing through crops and orchards and doing real economic damage. Pump up porcupine numbers to fix one problem, and you might just plant another. You don't relieve pressure on a living system by adding animals to it. You just move the pressure somewhere new, and sometimes somewhere worse. This is the trap that keeps repeating across the whole history of wildlife management, and it's the one people most want to ignore. Over and over, a species gets moved or multiplied to fix one specific problem, and over the fix grows into a problem of its own that outlives whatever it was meant to solve. An ecosystem is a machine with one broken part you can swap out. It's a web. Pull one strand with the best intentions, and strands you never even notice start to move. That's the humbling truth anyone who's ever tried to manage a wild landscape runs into. Eventually, you almost never get to fix just one thing. You reach in to solve a single clean problem, and the system answers back with 3 new ones you never saw coming. Good intentions don't exempt you from that. If anything, they can make you more dangerous because they make you confident enough to act too soon. So the real challenge was never just about controlling Komodo dragons. It was about balancing an entire system of pressure. Predators, prey, people, land, all pushing against each other at once. Which means the answer, if there's one, was never going to be a single clever animal. It was going to be something far less exciting and far more within reach. And here's the thing nobody wants to hear. The fixes that actually work are boring. Secure the livestock. A strong, well-built enclosure a dragon can't breach takes the easiest meal right off the table. It sounds too simple to matter, but so much of the danger comes down to access. A goat behind a flimsy fence is an invitation. The same goat behind a solid, elevated pen is a problem the dragon can't solve. And a predator that can't solve a problem eventually stops showing up. None of that is glamorous. It's post holes and hard labor and a farmer spending money he doesn't have to spare on a fence that simply has to hold. There's no drama in it, no headline, no moment of triumph. But that farmer building a stronger pen at dusk is doing more to protect his animals than any grand relocation scheme ever could. The boring fix is one thing, the exciting one doesn't. It actually works, and it works tonight. Manage the waste. Food scraps and refuse near homes act like a beacon, quietly advertising the village as a feeding zone. Clear it out, and you kill the invitation. Cut the attractants that pull predators in, and most of the reason for them to come vanishes with it. But the biggest fix goes deeper than any fence. Protect the deer. The whole spiral starts when the dragon's natural prey gets too scarce to live on, and it turns toward a village out of pure need. Keep the wild prey healthy and abundant. And you give a dragon a reason to stay where it belongs, out in the forest, hunting the way it evolved to. That doesn't just treat the symptom. It goes at the root. Every deer that survives in the wild is one less reason for a dragon to test a village fence. The predator was never really the enemy. Hunger was, and that reframes the whole fight. You stop asking how to beat the dragon and start asking how to feed the forest. Guard the deer, protect the habitat that holds them, give the wild enough life to keep a predator fed inside it, and the pressure on the village eases on its own, not through force, but through abundance. It's slow, it's patient, it's the opposite of a dramatic rescue. But it's the closest thing to a real cure anyone has actually found. And then there's the peace no fence or feeding plan can touch. Culture. In some of these communities, the Komodo dragon isn't just feared, it's part of who the people are. In certain local traditions, the dragons are spoken of as relatives, kin sharing the same land, bound to community by story and belief. Surveys suggest a large majority of residents, around 4 in 5, say they're willing to live alongside the danger rather than see the animals gone. And that single fact reshapes everything. It means any plan built on removing or destroying the dragons was never realistic. Not because it couldn't be done, but because the people who live there don't want it done. They're not asking to be rid of the predator. They're asking to survive next to it, which is why the porcupine, for all its incredible power, was never going to be the whole answer. It's a genuinely intriguing piece, a native animal with a defense so brutal even apex predators back off. But it's one piece of a much bigger puzzle, and no single piece finishes alone. So here's where it all lands. There's no clean fix, no single animal, no single fence, no single law that makes the danger disappear. There are only trade-offs. The dragon in the forest is doing exactly what it evolved to do. The people beside it are doing the exact same thing. Neither one is a villain. They're just two kinds of survival crammed into the same shrinking space, forced to work out how to share it. The porcupine was never a magic bullet, but the fact that people looked at an animal that overlooked that unusual and saw a real answer in it tells you exactly how serious this has become. So here's my question for you. If you had to choose, would you protect the people or protect the predator, knowing you probably can't fully do both? Tell me in the comments. And if this one pulled you in, subscribe before you go, because the next story is one you're not going to want to miss.